Anybody who is within 100 miles of paying attention to cryptocurrency saw that yesterday the UST Terra stablecoin, quote unquote, lost its peg to $1 and dropped as low as, in some cases, 60 cents. So we saw a stablecoin that was supposed to retain its value lose a lot of that value with a lot of catastrophic and possibly game-changing consequences. The question now, we did have Do Kwon, the leader of the Terra UST project, tweeting about 20 minutes ago that he has a rescue plan. Remains to be seen what exactly that plan is. But maybe Will could take us through a little bit of the basics of why this happened as a trading familiar person.
Yeah, I'll do my best. This is a pretty trading guru. That's me. This is a pretty intricate conversation, and it's one that I think people are going to pull out the next few weeks, kind of dig through some certain threads about it. The main thing here is that the product they were building really was a financial primitive. This is not something that anyone has successfully done in the past, and now we're saying that they weren't able to do it either, right? So USDT or UST is an algorithmic stablecoin. It uses another coin called Luna to balance a peg to the US dollar for the main token. And when these tokens do is they have a floating peg on one side, and then one peg is to the United States dollar. They're supposed to interact with each other, and that peg is supposed to stay whole to the dollar. Unfortunately, there's like this not so virtuous cycle where if one starts selling, the other will start selling. If one starts pumping, the other one can start pumping. And yesterday we saw the sell effect, right? So Luna started falling and the token UST started falling as well. And it seems like there were some other people out there who are also shorting UST, trying to make the peg break. They're continuing to sell this token over and over again in large markets. So the Luna Foundation Guard, which is basically a centralized organization that its main goal was to prop up UST, the stablecoin, it started selling its Bitcoin reserves into the open market to buy USD to combat these large sell orders. That didn't seem to work. They sold about $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Looks like they purchased some more. And it still wasn't really able to uphold the peg. The peg fell as far as 63 or 64 cents. It's back up into the 75-cent range. That's a broken coin. That's a broken stable coin. And now the LFG does not have very much Bitcoin to its name and has a huge community with a lot of broken trust. Zach, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I saw everybody wants to get in. I want to make two more comments just to sort of lay some groundwork here. First, to sort of dig in a little bit to what Will said. When you say people are trying to break the peg, kind of right, kind of not, right? The situation is that people can actually make money by breaking the peg. And that's why this is a dangerous and self-perpetuating cycle. It's not just that somebody has some personal animus to Do Kwon or doesn't like Terra. This is an opportunity for people to make money, and as long as that opportunity still exists, these attacks will continue. And the second thing I want to just nail down is the idea of an algorithmic stablecoin and why that's so important and why people do want this to succeed, which is that if you have a truly decentralized token that has a constant value, that opens up a lot of potential cross-border applications and other things. And so there is a lot of drive for this, but it doesn't look like it has worked this time. And I think I and a few other people would agree that it is an impossible dream. But Jen, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I actually just had a question. This article made me kind of think down the legal rabbit hole, and I think we're going to get there a little bit later on in the segment. But reading the story, why should anyone who's not a crypto trader care about this?
I have an answer for that, which is that on a protocol called Anchor inside the Luna system, you can earn 20% annual percentage rate yield. That is the reason anybody would ever want to use this. It is, as far as I can tell, the main reason anybody did want to use this, and the Anchor protocol lost about $5 to $7 billion of capital in a day yesterday. So that happened. And just to be clear, all of that 20% is coming from somewhere else. It is being pumped in by a third party. And Zach sounds like he has something to say about that.
I mean, I'll zoom out even further and just remove it from the world of numbers and just say these are fragile, interconnected systems, especially when we're talking about algorithmic stablecoins and this dream of a decentralized dollar peg asset. These are hard problems to solve. And this one missed the mark pretty spectacularly. When you're talking about a stable coin that's supposed to maintain a dollar peg dipping to something like 65 cents, I think still it's around 92, 93. Yeah, that's still 89 really bad. Really bad for a stable coin. to be floating around those lows. So if you zoom out and you think about Web3, crypto, blockchain as an attempt to rebuild the financial system in a way, hopefully, in its end state is more equitable and accessible to all. This is a great example of that, of a pretty catastrophic failure. We're going to see if Luna and Terra can regain a little bit of trust. We're going to see what this plan looks like that was teased by Terraform Labs founder Do Kwon. There's a lot of excitement around that tweet. We'll see what it looks like, what kind of bailout we might be talking about here, and who are the actors that step up. So it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like. But again, in the world of assembling these planes while they're in flight, sometimes things go wrong. And yesterday was a really remarkable scenario in which people the world over were looking at their screens, refreshing, and seeing if this asset could find its footing. That to me is the big picture here. But I'll toss it down to Will.
Yeah, one point I want to bring up is that a lot of people have predicted this for quite a while. So we've seen a lot of these algorithmic stablecoins. Last year, there was a ton of them. David Morris might be one person who called this before it happened. But some other protocols out there were basically canary in the coal mine situation. Fei protocol is probably the most important one from last year, in Ethereum stablecoin. Raised a bunch of money to create an algorithmic stablecoin, catastrophically failed. The team is still around building a new project. I'm not very familiar with what they're doing, but the important part there is that they tried to build an algorithmic stablecoin using the same functions that basically Terra Luna is using, and it didn't work, right? And now we're seeing that this project is dragging the rest of the crypto ecosystem into the mud on a few different levels. We'll get to the regulatory side in a second. But for Bitcoin right now, you see that they sold $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin into the open market. That caused a huge crash in Bitcoin's price, about 15% yesterday, and has really pushed Bitcoin into a tough spot right now. A tough spot when a lot of other markets have already been shoving Bitcoin down, right? So if we look at equities markets over the last 90 days since the start of the year, they've been bad. It's been a bad place to be in equities. It's been a bad place to be a tech stock. Bitcoin has actually done pretty well. It's only down about 5% versus like the NASDAQ, I believe. Now it's doing even worse because of what Terra has done by selling all this Bitcoin to the open market. A lot of Bitcoin proponents out there, like Adam Back, CEO of Blockstream, called this out weeks ago and said, what is this guy up to? He's going to hurt the market when this perpetual motion machine ends up breaking. And that's what happened yesterday. And that's why it's so fascinating. We've seen almost different sides of the crypto ecosystem come out for and against this, and then it ended up happening one way or the other. Zach, I think I saw your hand go up, so I'll throw it back up to you.
I'll do a quick one and just bounce it over to David, because I think, I wanted to really home in on what's the cause and what's the effect, right? We know that the crypto markets as a whole are broadly linked to the rise and fall of Bitcoin itself. So, and I'm going to toss this to David. Maybe he has a clear articulation of this. Is what happened as Bitcoin started to fall and Luna started to fall as well, therefore it broke the fundamental physics of how UST worked? Was this like a response to Bitcoin's already, falling fortunes in the wake of some broader macroeconomic trends?
I mean, that is definitely some like very multivariable calculus that I'm not able to do live on the air. But I think basically the answer is no, because the BTC reserves that Luna has in the LFG were, not formally integrated into the system. And so that's another thing to keep in mind here with stablecoins and algos in general, is that as soon as you have an algorithm that is a set of rules according to which the price of something is going to change relative to somebody else, somebody will find a way to exploit that. And will learn how to position themselves to profit from the way you've set up your system. And this is definitely what happened here. And frankly, even once they get Bitcoin into that reserve, if that ever comes to fruition, somebody will figure out how to game that too. And I want to make one last point, because I think this is an important opportunity to put in a plug for journalism and for critical thinking about these things, because everybody who's losing money today really needs to think about how they got there. And there have been warnings, there have been critical analysis, there have been people looking very hard at this for a long time. That's our job. That's a service that we do for you to try and prevent things like this from happening. So when Luna dumps $3 billion worth of Bitcoin and you lose money, don't look at us, I guess is what I'm saying. If I'm feeling a little bit like a victory dance right now, yes, that is what this is. This is vindication.
David, don't rub it in people's faces.